Okay, so here in the exceptions, I think Sir has given the exceptions. What do you mean by exceptions? So we'll see one example, then we'll come to the conclusion of definition of a exception. So here, now I'll write one string object, string of s equals abcd. Now how to print the characters which are present inside the string object? So which is the method to print a single character which is present inside the string object? So there is one method called caret. There is one method called caret. Here we have to pass the index and it will give the corresponding value or character of that. For example, so s dot caret, and here I have to pass the index. So here I will try to pass 0. So you observe the output. Here we are getting A. Then if I change it into 3, we will get the index or character which is present at the index value 3. So D we are getting now. But if I give the index which is not present inside the characters for like 10, so there is no index called 10. But did you observe during compile time, is there any error? During the compile time, is there any error? There is no error during the compile time. But during the runtime, we will get the problem. What is that? Here we are getting exception in the thread main java.lang.string out of string index out of bounds exception. So we can get to know that here exceptions we will get during the runtime, and during the compile time there is no problem. So did you observe everyone here? And I will give one more example. So same example, string s1 equals null I will give here. Again if I call s1 dot char at of 0, which exception we will get now? Whether the same exception, index out of bounds exception will get now, we will see. But you observe here during the compile time there is no problem. During the compile time of the Java program there is no problem, but during the runtime we will get exception. Again we are getting string index out of bounds exception. So like this many exceptions we will get, and I will write one more exception, that is arithmetic exception. Int c equals 5/0, and I will try to print the value of c. Here instead of 5, like if I give 10/2, whether we will get the value of c or not. I will remove this or else it will be confusion. So now if I execute this program, whether we will get the proper output here, that is 5. So we can observe here there is no problem in the compile time, and I will execute the program. So we are getting the proper output, that is 5. So during the compile time and during the runtime there is no problem, there is no error. But if I change the value from 2 to 0, now during the compile time there is no problem, but whenever we execute the program we will get one exception, that is java.lang.arithmetic exception. Why we are getting? Because we cannot divide the number by 0. So now we have to solve this, right? So whether it is a abnormal situation or normal situation, what we are seeing now, the arithmetic exception, whether it is a abnormal situation or normal situation, every time we will get the arithmetic exception. No, whenever we divide the number by 0 we are getting, not during every time we are not getting the arithmetic exception. So by this we can understand that what do you mean by exception now? Yeah, so it is one abnormal situation. The abnormal situation occurred during the runtime of a program or while execution of the program. We call it as exception. Is it clear for everyone about the definition of an exception? The abnormal situation occurred during the runtime or execution of the program. We call it as an exception in Java. So the abnormal situation occurred during runtime of Java program. We call it as exceptions in Java. So under the exceptions, we have two types of exception. So before going to the types of exception, we will learn how to handle the exception. We will learn how to handle the exception. So if you write this type of program in the project, whether the manager will accept this program, whether the company manager will accept this type of program, because you are not getting proper output, you are getting some error. So what we have to do? It is one abnormal situation. We cannot predict also. So what we have to do? We have to solve this exception. We have to solve this exception or handle the exception. So now the topic is handling the exception or how to handle the exception. So for handling the exception, we have to use try catch block. We have to use try catch block. So can you tell me here which is the exception causing statement? See, I have written two instructions or two statements inside the main method. In this two, which is the exception causing statement? Which instruction causes the exception? Whether the line number 9 or 10. So here we can check here. So they are showing the exception at the 9, not in the 10. We are getting the exception in the line number 9. So inside the try block, yeah, so I'll write the first before going to the try and catch block, I will write the syntax for try catch block. So we know that if we want to handle the exception in the Java, we have to use the try catch block. The syntax for try catch block is try. Here you write exception causing statement. Then after try block, write catch block. In the catch block, you have to mention the type of the exception. Here you have to mention exception type and one variable. So it is the syntax for creating a try catch block or handling the exception in Java. So inside the try block we have to write exception causing statement, and after the try block catch block is we have to write, and in the catch block the arguments are we have to mention the type of the exception and one variable, and inside the catch block whatever instructions or statements what the programmer wishes he can give there. There is no problem in that. In the before program. So here getting the arithmetic exception. Now we have to handle this. So we know that int c equals 10 by 0 is the exception causing statement. I will write this statement inside the try catch block. So here first I will declare the c value. Then here I will do the modification, that is division. Yeah, so In the try block, we have written the exception causing statement. In the catch block, here we have discussed that for the syntax of the try and catch block, inside the catch block, we have to mention the type of the exception. We have to mention the type of the exception. So here, from the try block, it is throwing the arithmetic exception. So here we will get arithmetic exception. So the job of try block is to see here. The job of try block is to throw the exception from try block to catch block. So here in this line we will get arithmetic exception. So try block will throw the arithmetic exception to the catch block. So in the catch block we have to catch that exception. For that reason only we are creating the variable, because we know variable is a container. So in the container we can store the exception. So that's why from the try block it will throw the exception, and in the catch block we have to catch that exception. If the exception is caught only, we can tell that exception is ANDed. If the exception is not caught, we cannot tell exception is handled. For handling the exception must be caught inside the catch block. So now it is throwing an arithmetic exception. Now here I will mention arithmetic exception type only. Now you observe the program, how it will behave. So here I will mention arithmetic exception only. So now at this time, are we getting any exception? At this time, are we getting any exception? We got the output as 0. So try block is executed, catch block is executed, and the 18th line, println of C is also executed. There is no problem in that. Now we have to check whether the exception is caught or not. So here it is throwing an arithmetic exception from the try block, and in the catch block, that arithmetic exception is successfully caught, because the data type what we have mentioned inside the catch block, same type arithmetic exception only. So it is throwing arithmetic exception type, and in the catch block also we have mentioned arithmetic exception type. So there is no problem in that. Both are same, both are of same type. Now we can tell exception is handled. But instead of mentioning arithmetic exception, if I mention any other exceptions, we will get exception again, because both are not matching. See, now instead of mentioning the arithmetic exception, now I will mention class cast exception. I will mention class cast exception. Now you can observe in the program, try block is throwing arithmetic exception, but in the catch block we have mentioned the data type of the variable as class cast exception. Whether both are matching, arithmetic exception and class cast exception. So there is no relationship between them. There is no relationship. Now we can tell exception is not handled. Exception is not caught. Is it clear, everyone? Here, exception is not caught and exception is not handled. Here we have to mention the same type of the exception, and I will show you the exception hierarchy. There you can understand, other than the same type of exception, what are all the exceptions you can declare. 1 minute, I will show you the exception hierarchy. So can you observe the exception hierarchy here? So these are all the inbuilt classes. These are all the inbuilt classes, and these classes are present in java.lang package. All the classes. So throwable is a supermost parent class here. For the exception hierarchy, under the throwable classes, we have exception class and error class. So under the exception, we have IO exception, SQL exception, class not found exception, and runtime exception. So these are all the types of exceptions. So take a snap of this, everyone, the exception hierarchy. So here we know that what is the advantage of upcasting? What is the advantage of upcasting? Do you know the advantage of upcasting, or why we have to do the upcasting? What is the use of upcasting? What is the advantage or use of upcasting? The main use is to create generalized container. The main use is to create generalized container. See, I'll give you an example. You can understand better there. Yeah. So, for example, think there are some classes. First, I will take doctor. So, for the doctor parent class, I will add some child classes. Yeah. So, these are the child classes of doctor class. So, here the child classes of doctors are like dentist, then here I'll take cardiologist, then here I will take neurologist. So observe here, it is doctor is a parent class. It is a parent class, and these are all the child classes. So can I create an object for the dentist class? Can I create an object for the dentist class? Is there any problem for creating an object for dentist class? So here I will write the instructions. New dentist, no argument. And can I create or can I store that address inside dentist type only? So in this line, is there any problem creating an object for the dentist type and storing that address inside the dentist only? So there is no problem here. And in the next line, I will create a type of doctor. So here I'll give A2 is given equals new dentist, no argument. So in this line, is there any problem or I will get any compile time error? In this the second line, I am creating an object for the child class, but storing that address inside the dentist class. So is there any problem here? Is there any problem? and I'll store the neurologist type address. Can I do like this? The fifth line, whether it is valid or not. Fifth line, whether it is a valid or not. So here it is valid. I can create an object for the same type and I can store it in the same type. But in the second line, what we are doing here? In the second line, we are creating an object for the child class, but storing that address inside the parent class. Upcasting is happening here. There is no problem. Upcasting is possible in the Java. Then here also same thing, creating an object for the child class, storing that address inside the parent class. No problem. Neurologist also same thing I have done. I have created an object for child class, storing that address in parent class. But in the last line, what I am doing, whether it is possible, creating an object for the child class, that is neurologist, and storing that address inside cardiologist. Whether is there any possible doing like this? Whether it is upcasting or downcasting, it's not possible. It's not possible here because they should be having parent and child relationship. Here there is no parent and child relationship between neurologist and cardiologist. So here I cannot store the address of neurologist type in the cardiologist type, and I cannot store the cardiologist type address inside the dentist type address because they don't have any relationship. We don't have any relationship. If we want to store the address, there should be some relationship, that is parent and child relationship. So here what I have done, I can create an object for dentist, cardiologist and neurologist. So all these addresses can I store in the doctor type, that is parent class type? Yes or no? Can I create an object for all the child classes and store these addresses in the doctor type, that is parent class type? Yeah, it's possible because upcasting. So what we are doing here, we are achieving generalized container. We are achieving generalized container. Means we can store all the child objects in the parent type. We can store all the parent objects, child objects in the parent type. That it is an advantage of an upcasting. It is an advantage of upcasting, that is we can create generalized container. We can store all the parent class, child class object type addresses in the parent class type. So here also can we follow the same thing? Where yeah, exception hierarchy. So can I create an object for these are all the classes. Throwable is the supermost parent class. Exception is the parent class. So can I create an object for arithmetic exception? And can I store that address inside the exception type? There it is possible. Yeah, it is also possible because we are doing upcasting, creating an object for the child classes and storing that address in parent type. So in the program, we have to link this concept now. In the exception program, we have to link this upcasting concept. So that is so here I cannot mention the class cast exception type because where is the class cast exception? Yeah, here. Is there any relationship between the class cast exception and arithmetic exception? There is no relationship and there is no parent and child relationship. So here, if I mention class cast exception, now exception is not handled. Exception is not handled. So that's why we are getting again arithmetic exception. If we write try catch block, By seeing the try catch block, we cannot tell that exception is handled, but the exception which is thrown by the try block should be caught by the catch block. Here catch block is not catching the arithmetic exception. Now in this program exception is not handled. Here instead of class cast exception, I have to mention arithmetic exception. So both are of same type. There is no problem, or else I can mention parent class exception type.